Hello and welcome to this demonstration in which I'm going to show you how you can design this Halloween themed chocolate mold using ArtCAM Insignia 2015 R2. Specifically, the tools I'm going to show you refer to how to create vectors from images you've downloaded off the internet, how you can create real-time 3D shapes, how you can select the right tools and strategies to machine the mold, and I'm going to show you the improved simulation capabilities of our software. So let's now open ArtCAM and let's import one of the two images that we need. So say OK. Let's set the contrast bar to the minimum and we're going to retrace the outer shape of this pumpkin first. So let's create an ellipse. It doesn't have to be precise because we're going to edit the shape in node editing mode. Say create and close the form. So now you can enter node editing mode by either clicking on this icon or by pressing N on your keyboard. So let's start to insert some nodes, one over here, so we can move it. Let's move this one, insert a node. After we move this one, we can insert a node here and one here. So if we're happy with the result, we can close this form and create two polylines to retrace the stalk of this pumpkin. So we want smooth polylines to retrace roughly this side first and then the other side. And then we're going to create another polyline to close these two. Right, once we've got these, we're going to select all of the vectors and explode them, so we can trim the parts we don't need. And now we can select all of the vectors and join them with coincident nodes. So we've got 4 vectors now, and we will have 1 afterwards. We need now to retrace the eyes, the nose and the mouth of this pumpkin. So I'm going to create a polyline. We don't want it smooth this time, because we basically need 3 triangles, 2 for the eyes and 1 for the nose. For the mouth, I'm first going to draw the sharp lines and then I'm going to draw the smooth ones to then join them with coincident nodes. So I'm gonna start with these ones where we don't need smooth polylines. And then I'm going to press S on my keyboard to switch to smooth polylines, and I'm going to draw the rest. Now this side. And this is our last vector. We now want to select all of them and join them with coincident nodes. Once we're done with these, we can select all of the vectors we've just created and export them. So you can choose the folder you like. I'm just going to call this pumpkin and I'm going to choose EPS as a format. So once we're done with these, we're going to open the other image we need, and we do not need to save our changes as we've already exported the vectors. So let's set the contrast bar to the minimum again, and we're going to retrace the outer shape of this ghost. So we want smooth polylines, and let's start to draw around. So once we're done, we want to retrace the eyes, the eyebrows and the mouth. So let's start with the mouth. We want one polyline for the upper lip and then one polyline for the bottom lip. And we want now to join them with coincident nodes. Then we're going to draw two circles for the two eyes. And then we're going to explode the vectors again to trim this internal part we don't need. Then I want to draw the pupils, so I'm just gonna draw one, create, and then I'm going to copy this vector, paste it, and then move it to have another pupil which is going to be identical to the first one. We now want to draw the eyebrows, so polyline, but we don't want it smooth, so I'm just gonna draw both of them with sharp segments. Once we're done with this, we can select all of these vectors and export them. So ghost, save. We can now delete them and retrace this bat. So we need polylines again. I'll first draw the sharp segments, as I've done for the pumpkin before. And then I'm going to draw the smooth segments to complete the shape. Right, once we're done with this, we can select all of these vectors and join them with coincident nodes. Close the form, and now we just need to retrace the eyes and we're done. So let's create an ellipse. Click on create, close the form, and then copy it, paste it, and move it. So we have got our bat. We can select it and export these vectors. Bat, save, and we can now start to draw the actual model. So new model, which is going to be 500 millimeters high, 750 millimeters wide. We want the origin to be in the bottom left corner of the model and the resolution to be as high as possible. And again, we don't need to save our changes as we have exported the vectors. So the first thing we need to do, we need to draw a rectangle which is going to be 135 millimeters wide, 180 millimeters high, and centered in 450 in X and 350 in Y. Click on create. Don't close the form because we will need to draw another rectangle which is going to be 135 by 180 again, but this time centered in 600 in X and 350 in Y. So click on create and you can close the form now. So we've got our two rectangles. We are going to select them both and mirror them. So make sure that this box is ticked because we want to copy these objects, and we're going to copy them first across the model, and then we're going to select all of these four and mirror them over the model. And once we've got our 8 rectangles, we can close the form. Now we just need to draw one more rectangle, which is going to be 650 millimeters wide, 450 millimeters high, and centered this time in the center of the model. So click on create and close the form. We now want to modify this outer shape a bit, as you can see in the image. So I'm going to insert some middle nodes. So I can enter node editing mode and right click on any span and say insert a mid node. You can do the same by hovering with the mouse over the span and by clicking M on the keyboard, like so. Now I'm going to insert two more nodes here, one on the left and one on the right, and the same in the bottom part. And the last thing we need to do, we need to make the 4 nodes on the vertices smooth. So you can do this by right-clicking on the node and say Smooth Node, or by pressing S on the keyboard. And then you can close the form. Once you're happy with these, we can start importing the vectors we've created previously. So let's go on Vectors, Import. Let's start with the pumpkin. So we definitely need to resize these, so you can enter the Transform tool and scale the pumpkin's width to be approximately 110 millimeters. So if you maintain the aspect ratio, the height will be calculated automatically. Click on Apply and then move it somewhere on the model. Don't close the form because we will need to rotate this by 45 degrees anti-clockwise. Click on Apply and now you can close the form. We want this vector to be centered in this rectangle, so we can shift select them and say Center Vector. Now we will copy this pumpkin, paste it, move it upwards and center it in this rectangle. Now let's import the ghost. Let's enter the Transform tool again. The width is going to be something around 69 millimeters. Height automatically calculated. Click on Apply and rotate this by 45 degrees anti-clockwise. And then we're going to center it in this rectangle. And then create a copy. Paste it and move it. Center these and we're done with the ghost as well. Let's import the bat. So we're going to enter the Transform tool again and scale its width to be something around 152 millimeters. Click on Apply and then rotate these by 45 degrees anti-clockwise. Close the form and then center these. Let's create a copy of these, paste it and move it, and then center it again. Now to fill these two rectangles, what we're going to do, we're going to create text vectors. So you can choose the font and the characteristics you like. I'm gonna go with these ones, and I'm going to type trick or treat. Click on Create. And then I'm going to enter the mirror tool because we want the text to be in the right order on the chocolate rather than on the mold. So I'm not going to copy the original objects and I'm going to mirror these, choosing this option. Close the form and now we can enter the Transform tool and rotate these by 45 degrees anti-clockwise. You can close the form and center this vector. We're going to copy this again, paste it and move it and center it again. Right, so we are done for vectors creation and we can get on the 3D view, display the vectors and select a view from the top to start to create 3D shapes. So I'm going to select these 8 rectangles and I'm going to enter the shape editor. You can do this by clicking on this icon or by pressing F12 on your keyboard. So I want a plane, I want a start height of 35 millimeters and I want the relief combine mode to be set to subtract. So click on Apply and you can see the results. So we can close the form because we want to add some draft. So let's enter the draft tool and let's say we want to remove material or to add material. In this case we want to add material and we want a 5 degrees angle. So click on apply, and you can see the draft has been applied. You can close the form now. Now, for the outermost vector, we want a planar shape again, this time 50 millimeters high, and we want the relief combine mode to be set to add, to have this result. So click on apply, and we can close the form again to start to see the results. If you're happy with these, we can start to edit the shapes of these vectors. But first of all, we need to select all of them. So shift select them, all the ones we've created, and we want to ungroup them all. So right click, ungroup all. Let's start with the pumpkin. Let's select both of the outer vectors, enter the shape editor, and select a round shape with a 20 degrees angle and a start height of 2 millimeters. Add this time and click on apply. I'm not going to close the form because I will need it for the rest of the vectors. So select the eyes, the nose and the mouth for both pumpkins. And we want a round shape, an angle 20 degrees again, start height of 1 millimeter only, and relief combine mode set to subtract. Click on apply, and this is the result. Now, we can start with a ghost. So select the two outer vectors. We want a round shape again, 20 degrees angle, start height of 2 millimeters, relief combine mode to be set to add, and click on apply. So now for the mouth, the eyes and the eyebrows, we are going to set a different shape. But first of all, we need to join the eyes with coincident nodes, as we haven't done this before. So shift select them, join with coincident nodes. We've got 4 vectors and we will have 2. Now we don't want to select the pupils, so we just select the eyes, the mouth and the eyebrows for both ghosts and enter the shape editor. So we want a round shape, an angle this time of 30 degrees and a start height of 0.5 millimeter. Relief combine mode set to subtract, and we can click on apply. And last, we're going to work on the pupils. Select the 4 of them, shape to be a round shape, and we want a 40 degrees angle with no start height and relief combine mode set to add. Click on apply and close the form. So this is the result we got, and we can now play with the bats and the text vectors. So let's select first the bats, both of the outer vectors, shape editor, a plane, start height of 4 millimeters, relief combine mode set to add, and you can click on apply. For the eyes, we want a round shape, angle of 40 degrees again, and a start height of 0.5 millimeter, relief combine mode set to subtract. You can click on apply and close the form to see the results. It looks nice. We just need to create the shapes for the text vectors, so we're going to shift select them, enter the shape editor tool again. We want a square shape this time with an angle of 70 degrees and a start height of 1 millimeter. So you can see it doesn't look great now. So what I'm going to do is set a limit to the height of these shapes, and this limit is going to be 2 millimeters. So you can see it looks much better now. You can click on apply and close the form. Now, the last thing we want to do is to add some draft again to the outer vectors and to these internal vectors. So ArtCAM will automatically recognize we've already applied draft to the slots and it will not touch them. So we can enter the draft tool again. We want to remove material this time. 5 degrees angle will do. You can click on apply and draft has been added both to the outermost vectors and to these vectors. So we can close the form and see the result. You can inspect your design. And we're now going to select the tools and the machining strategies for this part. So the first thing we need to do is to invert the relief in Z, because we will need to machine the mold for the mold. So let's now click on toolpaths and select a machine relief toolpath. So we want to machine the whole relief and we are going to choose the tools now. So for the finishing strategy, we want a 1.5 millimeters ball nose. Let's leave these values as they are and let's select the tool for the roughing strategy. We want a 10 millimeters end mill this time. Click on select and we now just need to define the material. So we've got a 50 millimeters thick block, but we want a 2 millimeters bottom offset. So let's set this to 52 and let's set these to 2 millimeters. We want the material Z0 to be on top of the material, so we can click on OK. And let's check the safe Z and the home Z. So they're set to 3 millimeters. It will be OK. And we can click on calculate now. So here you can see how our strategies will look like. We've got our roughing strategy and our finishing strategy. So the red lines are cutting moves, while the dark blue lines are rapid moves and the light blue lines you see are plunge moves. So the last thing I'm going to show you is how you can simulate these and export these toolpaths if you're happy with the simulation. So right click on machine relief, say simulate toolpath, just gonna set this to standard and click on simulate. So as you can see, this has taken less than 5 seconds and this is exactly how your part will look like after being machined. So if you aren't happy with these, you can go on toolpaths and save toolpath as. Just gonna call these Halloween. You can choose the machine file format you want. I'm just gonna go for a standard G code in millimeters. And I'm going to save these two strategies to separate files and I'm going to append their details to the file names. So click on save. And then browsing to the folder, you can see these two tab files and check that everything is alright. Right, so thank you very much for watching this demonstration in which I've shown you how you can design this Halloween themed chocolate mold using ArtCAM Insignia 2015 R2. I hope you found everything useful and I'll see you at the next one.